Hello, listener. You will be able to enjoy Cosmic Motion even if we're discussing a movie you have not yet seen. But as we're talking about many elements of this film and we'll be spoiling it, if you'd rather not know anything in advance, watch the movie first and then come back and join our discussion. And now, on with our show. Welcome to episode 25 of Cosmic Motion, an audio program where filmmakers discuss motion pictures, good, bad, ugly, and always interesting throughout the cinematic cosmos. We're recording this on July 2nd, 2025. I'm here with my compañero wearing a white sombrero, Colin Dixon.
And I'm here with my town drunk, William Boudel.
Colin, I wanted to begin by asking you some questions I normally ask our guests.
Oh, shit, you put me on the spot,
Oh,
son.
Yeah.
Damn.
Are you game?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Well, how about this? I'll ask you a question, and then you can ask me a question.
Okay.
If you'd like. If you'd like.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll do a little round robin before we get into this. Because I've got so much to say about this, we better make it short.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I typically begin asking people about their passion, where it began. Where did your passion for film begin?
My passion for film began in a theater in grand old Stockton, California. Some people call it the armpit of California. I'd like to refer to it as the asshole of California.
Is that where stock car racing was invented?
No, but they did have a funny car track. Of course they did. But
you mean like the figure eight thing?
No. I guess, is that what funny car is?
I don't know. You were using a term that I hadn't heard. Funny car.
I think it's just like a crappier car that goes in a circle.
Okay.
But it started at a discount movie theater called the Stockton Royale.
It sounds fancy.
Or the Stockton Royal. And it actually was. It was a grand old
palace,
movie palace style theater. And even better, the movies cost, like $1. Now, this is like the early 90s. But even for the early 90s, that's a pretty good deal. And I don't know. I just remember when I was first getting my first kind of freedom, or my first taste of being responsible and being able to traverse the town on my own without the care of good old mom and dad. Yeah, the Stockton Royal was a place where I could go and drop a very nominal amount of cash and just be
That's where you took your dates, wasn't it?
No. Do you like my Ghostbusters lunch pail?
Where do you want to go on a date? Well, how about the Stockton Royale? It's only $1.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I guess that's where I could trace it. I grew up with people who are from the greatest generation and the baby boomer generation telling me tales about how in my day, I could just run around town and I didn't have to worry about being abducted or this or that. And one way I could relate to that at all, because I did grow up in such a hyper paranoid Reagan era, was having
some Red Dawn stuff.
Not such a fear of the Ruskies, but everyone was afraid of child abduction. And this is the time when school shootings were becoming a thing. And, in fact, my town, not a thing it should be known for, but one of the first mass school shootings took place. I
didn't know that.
Yeah. So anyway, and it was already a fairly destitute part of California. But one of the ways I could relate to that generation that would purported to have this Dennis the Menace style lifestyle is being able to go into the theater whenever I want and kind of get lost there. And,
spend all day.
Spend as much time as I felt like. And it was literally the kind of place that had cartoons before movies and stuff, but they showed modern things.
Did your parents just drop you off and then come back later?
They were both teachers. And sometimes, when school would let out during the summers, I'd just have these long, hot summers where it's like, you're just, they're still working and you're off. And I guess you'd call it like a latchkey movie theater.
Somewhere with air conditioning.
But I think I just got exposed to such a degree of films and I kind of watched everything that I guess that's where my enthusiasm for it became. And, without going too much in my family history and stuff, it was just a really nice, necessary escape. But I'm an 83 child and a lot of people have dropped Star Wars in as their big influence. And of course, my first memories of a film are being plunked in front of Return of the Jedi and having my little mind blown by that.
Did you see it a number of times or just once? Or?
I'm sure I saw it a number of times, but I was going to say the thing that kind of turned me on to wanting to reach back across time towards different kinds of movies and different eras of movies were the Marx Brothers. And that that was a bonding thing that I had with my father. Oh. We were not a Three Stooges household. We were a Marx Brothers household.
I don't feel like there's a need to separate.
And yet you'll find people do feel like they have to delineate.
Yeah. Like, no, it was a more intellectual comedy. It was the Marx Brothers. As opposed to the slapstick.
So I'd say the Marx Brothers were pretty formative in like opening my eyes in terms of, hey, this can be black and white and sound like crap and be totally out of your wheelhouse and still be something you can totally relate to. And so I remember that sparking an interest in
super cool
being open to older stuff,
right?
Which is something that a lot of people either never develop or don't develop until late. So
their parents don't expose them. All they do is like watch Disney movies or whatever at home until they're 15 and however old. And then they're like, they can't watch black and white movies at all, ever.
Or until they're made to like watch How to Kill a Mockingbird in school,
right. And then it's some kind of drudgery or something.
But Billiam.
Yes. Hello.
What, was there
so much.
Were there some, films from your childhood or some filmic experiences that really awoke the film brat inside of you?
I would say it's pretty typical for me. I definitely was a Lucas Spielberg brat. So the Star Wars films and the ETs, the Indiana Joneses.
Sure.
To my embarrassment, my love of movies, not really embarrassment, but it's not like my parents sat me down in front of Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, and that's how I fell in love with movies.
I think that's overblown. People would call the stuff that we just referenced pedestrian, but it was pretty earth-shattering at the time.
I actually think that anybody who knows what they're talking about looking at those movies would say that those are some really sophisticatedly made works of art in a way. It's kind of like the way they used to look at Hitchcock and then finally realizing, wait, this guy is a brilliant filmmaker.
Well, I mean,
not the best date, but a brilliant filmmaker.
Yeah. I mean, one of the films I would have brought up is, as you mentioned, the Indiana Jones films. And if you want an early education in post-continuity editing, you don't have to go much farther than that chase sequence in Raiders. You know what I mean?
The one with the truck?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And some film scholars might be mad at that, but they're wrong.
Yeah, if somebody can't see the virtues of the technique in Raiders of the Lost Ark, then they don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, these are guys that came in and they kicked the doors down, granted with the tutelage of several foreign films at their behest, but whatever. They did it for American audiences, and even if that had broad appeal or didn't, it's worth mentioning.
Well, and what they did was they took old serials and they turned them into these mainstream. They took a B picture, gave it an A budget, and with A acting and A directing and A everything, and they made them into massive blockbusters. That's what happened with Jaws. That's what happened with Raiders. And speaking of serials, we're going to talk about a film influenced by serials today.
No.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't noticed, Colin and I are back on our own, back in the saddle again, riding along. And we thought maybe that it would be nice to have every 5th episode or so just be us. So we can talk directly to you guys and to each other, and also maybe do some films that we otherwise might not get to do, because typically we work from a list provided by ourselves to the guest. And sometimes they choose great films, but sometimes with the ones that we want to do keep getting passed over.
We provide them with a genre. They get to choose the genre and the time period. And if we really want to talk about, I don't know, Buckaroo Banzai or whatever it is, which I know that we both do.
Yes, we do.
That just might not be a part of somebody wanting to watch a psychedelic splatter giallo from the 60s or whatever.
True. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
So this will give us some opportunities, and it'll also give us a chance to check in with you guys. And maybe in the future, when we get some messages, now that we're actually publishing our podcast, we can answer some questions or address some things and see what goes that way. So we did it the way we do it with our other guests, which is that I presented a list to you.
Yes.
You gave me some qualifications.
I want to dial in on this, because you asked me for a genre, and I said, what did I say?
You said period film from the 80s or 90s. And I said
yes. Well, you said here's my list.
No. First I said, do you mean an actual period film made from those times, or do you mean a period film that is the contemporary to those times.
Right. Essentially, you're saying, does this take place in the 80s or 90s, or is it a period film? Because when I hear the phrase period film, my brain just goes straight to historical drama, historical comedy, historical whatever. But then I realized also after that...
So narrow.
Well, that's just a pretty broad description.
There's so much more than corsets and large manners.
And essentially, my mind does go to chivalry and medieval times and the Dark Ages when I say period films. But of course, period film means anything from cavemen, which, by the way, was on the menu potentially.
It was.
Thank
you to me.
A special choice for a period film called RUSTLERS Rhapsody.
Oh, yeah, yell.
Finally, after years of waiting, the American Western returns to the screen with the kind of hero you've been waiting to see.
He's coming! And he's standing in the saddle!
Standing in the saddle?
It's Rex O'Hurlahan, the singing cowboy, and his wonder horse, Wildfire, in Rustler's Rhapsody. There's action.
Don't just stand there, boys. Get him. Now!
Romance. How was it?
Oh, it was nice. It was, a lot of fun.
Yes, it was really terrific. A definite high point.
Come on. You want to be a sidekick, you gotta learn the ropes.
Thrills. And spills.
Good, very good.
Thank you very much.
And drama.
Either you get your rifle and come with me, or I'll shoot your wife in the shoulder.
Starring Tom Berenger as Rex O'Hurlahan.
I'm a little nervous. It's just Walker.
In Rustler's Rhapsody. From the director of Police Academy. From Paramount.
But I don't know. Actually, listeners, now that you're writing in, write in, tell me what comes to mind when we say the phrase period film. I want to know the first thing that like pops in your brain is. Okay, but that being said, Rustler's Rhapsody was a choice.
It was a choice, and it was the choice that Colin made. So we have no one to blame but Colin. Nobody to blame. No buckaroos to blame but Colin.
I think we could both be keel-hauled for this one. Oh, that's a naval term. I believe we could be wrestled out of town, both of us, for this one.
I don't know, buckaroo. You made the ultimate choice. You had a lot of choices. That was a good list. We should tell people what the list was.
Maybe.
So this is written and directed by Hugh Wilson from 1985.
Yeah, tell us why this exists.
Well, it probably exists because of Police Academy, because apparently this script sat around for a while.
Yeah.
Now, Hugh Wilson, who is he? I don't know who Hugh Wilson was. I haven't seen a Police Academy movie since I was a little kid, and I barely remember them. I know Steve Guttenberg was in them. I know that they are amusing. I'm not sure that they are the most respected films. Oh, Bobcat Goldthwait was in at least one or two of those.
Sure. Maybe the better thing to come out of that.
He had a funny way of speaking in those. I'm not sure what he was doing, but there you go.
Yeah.
So Hugh Wilson, who is he? He wrote on the Bob Newhart Show, the original. He wrote on the Tony Randall Show, and he created WKRP in Cincinnati. If anybody knows that show.
Yeah.
About the DJs.
Got one of the better sitcom theme songs.
There you go. And I think he wrote the lyrics to the theme song. He wrote the movies Guarding Tess, Blast from the Past, 1999, and he most famously rewrote and then directed Police Academy, 1984. Became a huge hit, spawned 6 sequels and like a TV series and just a whole mess of things.
Directed First Wives Club, huh?
There you go. See, you're pulling out the good ones. In 1988, he won an Outstanding Writing Primetime Emmy for Frank's Place episode The Bridge, which aired in 1987. He was born August 24th, 1943 in Miami. Died from lung cancer January 14th, 2018 in Charlottesville, Virginia. So there's a man that didn't retire in Malibu or Santa Monica or any of the other places that it seems like all showbiz people go to.
Indeed.
And the directing on this film, much like the writing, is a little dry. It could do with more style, particularly aping people like John Ford or Sergio Leone. You know, it more kind of sticks to, we're going to make this look like a Republic cereal, but color. And it does.
Well, I think you're burying what this film is trying to be a little bit. This feels like this feels like it wants to be the Western answer to a Zucker Brothers comedy. It feels like it wants to be that,
Well,
it's not successful at that.
well, I would say it's not quite doing that.
No, it's not. But I think it wants to be.
I disagree. I would disagree.
Okay, we'll get into it.
I think this guy's smart enough to know that his comedy is a little different than Zaz, as they call them.
I will say this. The film is, before we even get into the synopsis, the film is much more meta, certainly, than anything the Zuckers would ever do.
It's pretty meta.
I think that it might be a little bit too proud of itself for how meta it is.
Well, and also it came out in the 80s when Westerns were practically dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if it had come out, and this is something that I got from Patrick Wayne, who we'll talk about later, but he said, yeah, if it had come out maybe in the 60s, maybe it would have been a hoot. But it came out a little bit late, I think, for its audience. And so a lot of the people who would have appreciated all the references to Republic serial Westerns, 1936 to 1955,
yes,
spaghetti Westerns, even Sam Peckinpah Westerns, a lot of those people had kind of aged out of going to the theaters so much. They were sitting at home watching, Archie Bunker or whatever.
I think it'd be safe to say that people with disposable income in 1985, is this?
Yep.
Weren't thinking about, or didn't even have a working knowledge of like the singing cowboy movies.
Right. It's that meme of literally no one and then the colon, this is this movie.
Right. And then maybe the Coen brothers a few years later.
The Coen, Ballad of Buster Scruggs definitely came to mind, when I was watching this and wondering about it. Yeah, that is probably also more successful than this one. But I also enjoyed this film. That may surprise you, Colin. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's a knockout. It's maybe a first base or maybe a second base.
I was a fish that it would hook, then the line would go slack, and because they lost me, and then they would hook me back in.
Oh.
And then they would lose me. And
they never lost me. They just kind of very lightly kept me on. And I felt at any time I could unhook myself if I wanted to.
Sure.
There was no danger of getting reeled in any kind of like significant way. It never grabbed me. Well, or at least not much. But
that's probably a better fishing metaphor. However, if I can expand on this already clunky device, I would also say that it was as if I was vacillating between being caught on a line that I could release myself from at any time, both in a raging river and in a calm ocean.
Interesting.
In other words, it felt like they were doing two different things at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly don't think the filmmaker was in control of which one he had a mastery of or had a grasp on.
Well, before you get into that, let's synopsize this plot. Yeah.
So that we can. An effeminate cowboy named Rexel Hurlhan comes yodeling into town in pursuit of some cattle rustlers when I'm doing this off the top of my dome, when a complete vibe shift occurs and what was a typical singing cowboy character is thrust into a film where modern sensibilities are also in play. He meets a cast full of characters that represent different Western archetypes, but because he's a blast from the past, and by he, I mean Tom Berenger's Rex O'Hurlahan, he seems to have a knowledge of everything that could possibly happen because he's just so familiar with the genre.
Well, that's the very meta part of it, right?
That's the meta part, but then the actual plot is that he runs into your typical cattle rustling rough town that is both ruled by the iron fist of the Colonel, played by Andy Griffith, and he's shepherded through this experience through a potential sidekick character and also town drunk, played by G.W. Bailey. Throughout the film, Rex gets himself into a series of situations and scenarios that are typical of a Hollywood Western where the cowboys are under the oppressive thumb of big business interests. And eventually those interests conspire to do away with Rex, who then must confront his meta knowledge of how the genre works in a way to thwart what everybody else also knows about the way the genre works. That's the messiest way I could possibly sum up the synopsis, but there you have it.
There we go. So this film came out May 10th, 1985 in the United States, distributed by Paramount Pictures. And going back to what we were saying earlier, Hugh Wilson had just come off Police Academy. They probably were going to give him whatever he wanted to do to within a certain budget level and let him do it. So he had this script, pulled it out, made this. This was his follow-up to Police Academy. He never directed another Police Academy. I don't think he even necessarily liked the first one that much. When he first saw the script, he thought it was terrible and he completely rewrote it and made it into a hit, apparently. So the budget for this is $5.5 million. It only grossed about $6 million. It wasn't a huge hit. Didn't spawn a lot of other Westerns, although there was a kind of spate of mid-'80s Westerns. There was Silverado and some other things. There was
Larry Kasdan.
Yeah, Lust in the Dust was that might have been independent. Paul Bartel.
Well, and things like Dances with Wolves, and I guess that's
later.
late
Yeah,
80s,
that's 90.
Yeah, you're right about that. I feel like this was not the only film that was sort of meta interested in Westerns, but we can get to that later.
I really do like that meta aspect of it. I mean, I feel like a lot of times I don't like meta, or I don't like people thinking that they're clever because they're talking about the construct. But in this case, I actually enjoyed it.
I feel like I would have liked it more if the movie stuck to that lane. And I don't think it does. But before we get too much farther into the happenings of the film, I did notice that Walter Hill is a producer.
He sure is. And so is David Giler. Do you know what they produced in 1979 that was a big hit?
Together? No.
They had a company called Brandywine. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Alien. Giler and Hill produced
I knew
Alien.
that Hill was involved.
Giler and Hill were the producers behind Alien.
I guess
the Alien movies.
I guess I'm less familiar with Giler than I am with Hill.
Yeah, Giler isn't that well known except for his association with Hill.
Okay.
I mean, he did some other things, but that's his most famous association.
I would not have put that together.
They produced that. They produced this, and they produced a number of other things, and had a fun time with David Fincher on Alien 3. Why do I keep bringing up Alien 3?
Because you so love it.
Apparently, I want to talk about Alien 3 on every podcast.
I think it's a film that deserves... Well, Charles de Lauzirika did a great documentary.
It's amazing.
But I feel like that's a story that just needs to be unpacked. I think unpacking the story of Alien 3 could be a film course and a film education unto itself.
For sure.
So that's probably what I want to
I think Fincher got a film education on that one.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, they worked together. Obviously, Hill had been known for making his own Western films to some degree at this point. Being behind it as a producer made sense. I actually would think that he would be a fan of something that would look back fondly at the old Republic serial Westerns and other Westerns, and with a kind of fond, affectionate, light touch like this. And I guess that's part of what I like, and also maybe one of its failings, is that it has such a light comedic touch. I mean, there's literally times when the movie's playing and it feels like there aren't enough jokes.
Well, I will say this. The comedy rarely works for me, and it's not necessarily because the jokes are bad.
No.
You know, when I say that this film wants to ape the Zuckers, the Zaz, that's not me denigrating it. I think that's a noble thing to aspire to. I love that kind of comedy. The thing is, with this film, you could see the joke get off the bus 12 stops down the road, and then you had to wait for the punchline to walk 12 blocks to wrap up.
Sorry about the table, saloon owner.
That's okay, Blackie. No problem. Since it's Tuesday, have a free drink. It's on the house.
Blackie, you can kill me too if you want. But I think it's exactly this type of thing that drives down property values here in this little state.
That was the town doctor. I'm kidding. Just some real estate guy.
You know, that's my problem with this. And not every time. Some of the jokes are well timed, but so many of the jokes are so telegraphed. You know what the punchline is going to be, you know it's coming, and you got to wait like 30 seconds for it. And then when it gets there, it might not be that great anyway, unless it was a joke a minute kind of situation, as you're suggesting. So I think we agree in that regard, is that it wasn't jokey enough, but not because there weren't enough jokes. It's because the pacing of the jokes, I think, does not work.
Okay.
There are counter examples to this, I'm sure, throughout the film, but I
disagree. Okay. I do think that there weren't enough jokes, and I was fine with the kind of very languid pace of certain jokes. Now, would it have been funnier had they not been so telegraphed and not been so obvious? Probably. But I don't know, there was a charm to this film for me. Do I think it's a great film? No. But I thought it was a charming film, and I feel like it's a film that you could sit a 3-year-old in front of and maybe they might find it amusing, or maybe a 5-year-old. But like somebody who can understand the language, and then
it has a charm in that I can tell that somebody who produced this film has a reverie for the source material.
Yes.
And I can appreciate that.
Right.
But the pacing, a lot of what makes this film meta is how aggressively it calls out the trappings of the genre, right? And the tropes that surround it. And towards the beginning, Rex O'Hurlahan wanders into the town of, was it something Springs, Saratoga Springs?
It's a very strange, what is it? It's like Oakwood Estates or something.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. Oakwood Estates. So there's this scene after they have this protracted saloon sequence where they relive every trope that occurs in a saloon scene in a Western film, where Berenger reveals, by Berenger, I mean Tom Berenger, who plays Rex, is walking through the town with his eventual sidekick, G.W. Bailey, who's also narrating the film.
No, AKA Peter.
Is that his name?
Peter, yeah.
Okay.
The town drunk.
Yeah, I just thought of him as town drunk. Or
Finally,
AKA,
he says his name and he's like, my name's Peter. And it just felt weird that he had a name.
Yeah.
He should just be town drunk.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. But there's this protracted sequence where they're walking down the street and Peter is going, well, I bet you never heard of a town where, and then Berenger will stop him like, oh, you mean that's on the railroads? How'd you know that? And that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that scene goes on and on and on. It's
it was great.
It's fine.
I
but
enjoyed
it's
that scene.
But we can all just rattle off Western tropes. We can all do that. And we could have done it at the time.
But it was funny.
Yeah, see, this is the West. And out here in the West...
I know all about the West. I travel all over it, from town to town. That's what I do.
Yeah, but see, in this town...
This town's no different than any other Western town. They're all identical.
They are?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah, really. In every town there's a bar like that one we just came from. Oh, they might not all have continuous entertainment like that, but they're basically the same. The sheriff's totally stereotypical, and so's the saloon owner with that pencil-thin mustache.
Oh, no. Those guys are unique. I'm sorry, but I just don't believe you.
Okay. Do you have a very pretty but somehow asexual new schoolmarm?
Yeah.
Is the blacksmith a big friendly guy who only gets mad when somebody burns down his barn?
Yeah.
Is the editor of the paper a young idealist who's hawked everything to buy his press?
Damn.
See?
That's where I might depart from you.
Okay, that's okay.
There were things that I thought were funny about this film, but it's when they take this big dead stop in the middle of the narrative to go, this is what usually happens in Westerns, everybody. And the thing that grated on me about that was, as you alluded to, in the 80s, the Westerns were in trouble. But it's not as if they weren't producing them. And I was just thinking to myself, like, we've got examples of this happening nowish. So it's not as if like they're never making movies that have all of these tropes in them still.
Well, I think the movies in the 80s are maybe a little different. The 80s Westerns.
Yeah.
And they're not the same as the Republic, serials that were literally repeating the same tropes over and over like a soap opera.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they're really kind of leaning into those movies more than they are anything contemporary.
During the studio system days when films were being cranked out and mass manufactured.
Oh my gosh. Westerns
were a big part of that.
A huge staple.
And they would just start production on one cowboy picture to the other without a script in place. So yeah, you did have a proliferation of singing cowboys and these same tropes over and over. But that being said, they were still making these up into the 80s. And obviously Sam Peckinpah changed everything with this approach to Westerns. I would argue, like, things got a lot
and they
grittier.
ate that too, that, right?
Yeah,
like
yes,
they actually
do.
With the slow motion violence, the way people fall down after they get shot, etc.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, I didn't hate every meta aspect of the thing. There's a moment on a scene where they are on a boxcar train and suddenly there are two different colonels, one played by Andy Griffith and the other by Fernando Rey. And they both want to dispatch with Rex O'Hurlahan for different reasons. Yeah. And they do this thing where Fernando Rey, playing the railroad colonel, goes, "These are my henchmen, and they wear long leather trench coats." Right. And Andy Griffith's like, "Well, these are my henchmen. They look like good old cowpoke," or whatever. Right. And I was like, okay, that's a meta thing that I like.
They're literally comparing like 30s to 50s American Westerns to the 60s, 70s spaghetti Westerns. Exactly. And it's really fun.
Yeah, that's where you can go meta, and I'm on board. I'm like, hey, let's take a little trip down memory lane and think about all the fun things that this genre has contained within it. But when it just put a dead stop in any kind of like comedic momentum to do this thing where it's like, yep, I know they're going to show up tomorrow at 12 o'clock at sundown.
I'm surprised you disliked that scene so much. I really enjoyed it.
It's not just that one particular scene. It's just moments where I was taken out of the film because I was reminded that this film is reminding me that it knows so much about the genre. If that makes sense.
Well, I think back then it was less common to have something that did that. Now we've seen that more.
Sure.
But I think back then it was less common. And so I guess looking at it with context now, did that age well? Maybe it didn't age as well for you as it did for me. But that said, I think that what works for me, even though I wish the film were funnier and had more jokes, is that it doesn't, the charm is wonderful. That is something that works for me. I feel like that is actually something that supports it and keeps it lasting and may, right now it has a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah,
I would
that's
expect
surprising.
it to be lower, but I think that because of this charm, I think it maintains some kind of good impression on its audiences, because I feel like it's not nearly as funny as it should be. It's not, Blazing Saddles, for instance.
No.
But why don't we talk about the cast a bit?
Let's do it.
We've talked about Tommy Berenger a little bit. He's always a value add, as you like to say. At least I feel so. I like him a lot.
He is for me, but oftentimes in an ironic way, but that doesn't mean that I don't love him. So.
Well, just a few years later, he's going to be in Major League,
which I love,
which is a hilarious film.
No qualms about that film whatsoever.
And we should probably cover that one at some point, because people don't talk about that enough anymore. It was originally supposed to, his part of Rex O'Hurlihan was originally supposed to be George Gaines, who you guys might know from Police Academy. You also might know from Punky Brewster, if you ever saw that show or watched Nick at Night or whatever. He was locked into his Punky Brewster schedule, couldn't get out, kind of like Tom Selleck when he was supposed to be Indiana Jones, locked into Magnum P.I. So George Gaines couldn't play Rex, so it went to Tom Berenger. I think he does great here. He plays like a good-natured, Colin says effeminate.
Well,
the
movie goes out of its way to point that out to us. And
it's not saying he's effeminate. It's saying he's not experienced in the ways of love.
Well, eventually, but first it tiptoes around other possibilities. And we can talk about that series of jokes in a little while.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of those jokes are cringy. That's true. Yeah.
But we can get to that. Yeah, I think he's doing an interesting job here. I think that he's got...
an interesting job.
Well, I don't blame him for the shortcomings of the film. And I think that he's doing the best that he can with what he's got. He wears the suit well, and he's got kind of a stiff aspect of him that, to me, is part of his charm. And but he's always been kind of stiff. Yeah. And yet to see that in contrast with this character who's wearing these very ostentatious,
well, that's the
outfits
joke, right?
And things. No, exactly.
That's what they did back in the day. They would wear these ridiculous peacocking outfits.
Right, but back in the day, it felt like it suited those characters.
Back then, it felt that way. Probably,
right.
Yes.
But Berenger's so stiff, and he's got this stern face, and the contrast is funny to me. I don't know if it was intentional, but I enjoy it, so I'm not going to harp on it. And I do think that his wardrobe deserves a shout out, because it is very funny, and it's a funny throwback. And I also like the little world building that they've done around him in this film. I love the idea that he's got this wardrobe that he hauls around with him everywhere, and he's got like
10 hats.
He's got like 10 hats, and he's got like 7 guitars, and each one is like got some kind of sentimentality to him. And he's got like this bedroll of like knives and guns and stuff. And I thought that was, and he's got this kind of caravan that he camps at what seems like the same spot every night.
And in a Zaz movie, that stuff would all be much more obvious and the jokes would be louder around it. It would be much more in your face,
right?
Which is probably more effective. But for some reason, I find the subtlety kind of charming, but maybe I don't know, different.
It's not that I'm not convinced that was intentional. It feels to me like Hugh Wilson wanted it to be loud and in your face, and it just wasn't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And now that's apropos of nothing. I don't have any evidence about that. That's just how it feels to me. Mm-hmm. And so it feels like a failure in that regard.
But they would literally, like in a Zaz movie, there would be dialogue that would point it out. Like, why you have so many hats? It's like, what do you mean? Doesn't everybody? Like, there would be some joke like that.
Or those jokes would just be mile a minute, and maybe they wouldn't be pointing it out, but there'd be so many of them packed within the same space. Like, for instance, there's several jokes about them kindling this fire, and like they'll literally like start the small. They'll light a match, and tiniest spark.
Yeah, and then literally the flames just shoot out of the fire pit.
Which is probably that's probably a recycled joke from somewhere else, but it works here. That feels like a Zaz joke, but it's like kind of a joke that is not surrounded by a ton of other jokes of its kind.
I want to go to Hugh Wilson. Back in '84, he was in a Los Angeles Times article, and I want to quote him saying something that I think gives us some idea, at least of where he thought he was coming from. Quote, "This isn't really a send-up. We're playing it very straight. We loved those old films, and we really are trying to say something about them. Like, how can the hero keep changing his shirt?"
Okay. Well,
and I think that describes the movie pretty well. It's like they're kind of playing it straight. They're also scratching their head at a lot of silly things that they saw in the old serials.
but that is a send up. I mean, that's what you're doing.
It is. He's directly
contradicting himself.
Contradicting himself, and I think it's intentional.
Okay.
Or at least it comes off that way.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed that mix, but do I think it's funny enough? I don't think it's funny enough. I wish it was funnier.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is very clever. I really like the acting. I liked a lot of the humor in it, but I don't feel like they quite got to the high enough on the funny meter for me for a comedy.
Yeah, I do want to get into that. Although I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the way that the film is framed. And actually, it grabbed my attention right away. You know, they start by presenting you with this black and white, you know, they're in the Academy ratio. And then suddenly the narrator, played by G.W. Bailey, posits, what would it be like if they did one of these goddamn things in the modern times? And then the film bursts into
color
185 and to color, into a better sound mix. And suddenly Rex isn't chasing the villains, they're chasing him. And that conceit, I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what this movie was. And then I perked up. I was like, okay, we're in for it now. Like, because we do this experiment all the time on this show. Can you imagine if they made this film today? And then it's like, yeah, it'd be like if Kevin Hart and Jack Black were doing a blah, 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 or whatever.
Right.
That it'd be like if...
we were talking about in Excalibur, where they were riding the dragons and like they're playing Rage Against the Machine.
Right. We do this little thought experiment all the time.
Right.
And I thought to myself, oh, if that's what this movie's going to be, it's just going to take all these scenarios and go like, how would we spin it in the 80s, essentially? And I was on board with that, but they kind of abandoned that pretty early on, I feel.
I feel like it's doing it throughout the movie, the whole meta aspect of where they sort of laugh at the tropes from old Westerns.
I think, but I feel like, so I'm talking specifically of that thing they do. It's like he's chasing the bad guys at the beginning. And then suddenly, now that it's like, how would we do it today? And then it's like, they don't really call attention to it. They just stop what they're doing, and suddenly the villains kind of look back and they're like, wait, why is this guy chasing us? And then they start chasing him.
Right.
If the movie had operated that way, where they start doing one trope and then they kind of slide into the modern version of
so if they
that
showed
execution,
both.
or, led up to a scenario that you think you've seen a dozen times, and then it doesn't go that way. They start stringing up one of his sidekicks, and then instead of him saving them at the last minute, they just get hung or whatever it is. I would have appreciated that a little bit more than just the litany of meta things being sung to us ad nauseum. Just them going like, yep, in these movies, there's always a whore with a heart of gold or whatever. And it's like, it would have just been more interesting if like...
Show us, don't tell us.
Yeah, yeah. So
maybe they could have had the whore be a horrible person.
Right.
Excuse my language.
Well, that's what that's the language of the film.
Sex worker.
Well, but that would be a great one. So it's like, what if she actually has a name for herself? She calls herself like a hostess or whatever.
Right.
Like, just say it and correct him in that moment, and don't make a presentation of it. I think I would have appreciated at least the meta stuff a little bit better if they did it that way, which doesn't mean it never works. I'll point out several examples of where it does work, I'm sure, throughout our conversation here, but I would have liked it if it worked that way, if that's how the rules unfolded a little bit.
Right.
So,
well, I think that's a good idea. I think you have pointed out a way that they could have made the film funnier, and for me, that would have absolutely made it better.
The timing really was never an issue for you? I mean, I have to imagine occasionally it was.
Well, I mean, I guess I would say that they did feel a bit slow sometimes, but there were other times when the slowness I kind of dug because it felt as though you were being told the joke by an old cowboy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, but it's just, I mean, the writer's from Miami, so he's not, he didn't grow up in the West, but it just felt like the delivery of the jokes kind of matched the pace of life in the Old West, maybe to some degree. Now, would it have been funnier if it had been at more of a New York pace? Yeah, probably for me. But I appreciated what they were doing.
Sure.
It wasn't about pacing for me, honestly. It was more about the quantity of jokes and the kind of jokes. And I think you pointed out one way in which the kind of joke could have been improved. if they had really had made much more of a show of the conflicts of this Western versus the old serials that they were aping, and shown those two things clashing in a way that was more spectacular.
I think that you also pointed out what my biggest issue is it really is just a saying and not showing
right
kind of thing and the pacing is still an issue, but a good example of that, think about when he rolls into the bar and he looks at the bartender and he says, I'd like a warm milk.
Yeah.
And the bartender just stares at him, beat. Okay, I'll have a sarsaparilla. Beat. Cut back to the bartender. Not intentional. And then he looks around at the bar and sees there's
it's
a
totally
bunch
intentional. What do you mean?
But then he looks around the bar, sees there's a bunch of rough guys and goes, "Is this a rough place?"
No, I think he says, "Is this one of them mean bars
one of
or
those
something?"
mean towns or tough places or whatever. And the guy kind of gives him a nod and he goes, "Okay, I'll have a gin with a hair in it or something."
Yeah.
That's a warm milk, please. Make it a sarsaparilla. Is this one of those really tough bars? Well, let me have a large glass of warm gin served with a human hair in it.
Coming up.
And that's just a joke where pacing wise, and I get that this movie probably would have been in an hour and 5 minutes if they did this, but where he can come in, I'd like a warm milk. Beat, nope. This is one of those rough bars, isn't it? All right, I'll have a gin with a hair in it. Coming right up. And that would have just, and then write one or two more of those to fill in some of that space. And that's the kind of pacing stuff that, and that has nothing to do with the meta nature of it per se. I mean, I guess it is somebody making fun of the genre, but it's just a pacing thing at that point for me.
And maybe that would be the case for a lot of people. I actually liked that moment, but I get it.
I also feel like there's a lot of anachronism jokes that don't need explanation that get explanation. So for example, we were just referencing Marilu Henner, who plays Miss Tracy.
Yeah, we didn't finish going into all the people.
Let's do that.
Okay. So we mentioned G.W. Bailey. He's Peter. He's the town drunk who becomes the sidekick. He's from Police Academy.
Yes.
And actually, that's the reason why he's not, by the way, in Police Academy 2.
Okay.
They couldn't use him because he was in this. So just in case you were wondering,
I do not have an attachment to those films.
I don't either, but I have a friend who does. Hey, Kevin, he might enjoy that little tidbit.
They're definitely a time and place franchise.
Marilu Henner, who looks like $1 million, I think, in this movie.
Yeah.
And she's great. She's only in it for maybe a total of 5 minutes, but she packs a punch.
Well, she shows up repeatedly, though. She's featured throughout, even though she doesn't have a lot to say or do.
Right. Do you know about her hypermythesia?
No.
Okay, so Marilu Henner has a very, very rare condition. Get this. She has the ability to recall things from her own personal life back decades with absolute, critical precision. You could say, what were you doing 1976, May 5th? What day was it? Oh, it was a Tuesday. And I was ironing my clothes because I had a job interview.
Yeah.
She has that kind of, it's like this extreme form of autobiographical personal memory recall.
See, when you refer to it as a condition, and certainly it is a condition, it conjures like an ailment, but that's like a superpower.
It is a superpower. It's extreme. There's 100 people with it in the world or something.
And unless it affects her ability to function normally, but that seems like who among us wouldn't want that
I guess the thing that would stink would be that maybe she sometimes remembers things that she didn't. But other times she's probably very grateful that she remembers things that she does. So,
yeah.
But it's extremely rare. I mean, like I was saying, about 100 people maybe in the world can do this.
Okay.
And so I thought I found that
nice
interesting about her.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a few years back. I remember learning that about her and just hearing, like you said, thinking that's like a superpower. Like it's incredible.
Well, she brings a nice charm to this.
She does.
As does Andy Griffith.
Old Andy Griffith coming off. So here's a thing that I wish that they had pushed further.
Yeah.
So Andy Griffith plays Colonel Ticonderoga. Great name.
Yes.
And he's fantastic in the role. They play it up as though he is a repressed homosexual.
Yes.
And he keeps flirting with the men and things like that. And it never goes far enough for me.
I totally agree.
Because it is hilarious when he does it.
Well, in fact, because they do that, it made me feel like they almost weren't aware of it, like they were just being insensitive. And then later at a certain point in the movie, you realize, no, they're totally aware of this series of jokes they're presenting. It's just that because they don't go far enough with it, you almost feel like it's just Hugh Wilson's like antiquated way of thinking about the world.
I think it's his sense of humor, and I think that's what you're rubbing up against, and partially what I rub up against, but also what I like. And that is that I think he has a very it's sort of like people who have a palate that enjoys spicy food versus people who enjoy milder foods.
Yeah.
I feel like Hugh Wilson is a milder food kind of guy.
Well, but he also, if I were to watch the first few minutes of the film and didn't realize that series of jokes was going somewhere, I would have been like, oh, this is like a closed-minded person that's writing this. But actually, when they kind of reveal where they're going with that, it actually seems kind of forward-thinking. I mean, granted, they use some turns of phrase and some language that's like pretty old-fashioned. It's the fucking 80s. So
it's the 80s, and they were also trying to get a cheap laugh at times. But overall, there are some forward-thinking aspects to this film, actually, in general, that are refreshing. 1985.
Definitely. Although a Wonder Bread ass cast, if ever there is one. I mean, like, my God, like not even a hint of ethnicity anywhere in there.
It's true. Like,
which I don't always need that. But,
would have been nice to have a Mexican.
Yeah, or something representative. I guess Fernando Rey was supposed to be like in fact, they even make a joke about how oftentimes character actors from spaghetti westerns were impossible to understand. And I wasn't sure if that was an accent joke or a dubbing joke.
Well, probably both, because sometimes the accent, the dub version still had an accent. So yeah, Fernando Rey, who's a Spanish actor, is perhaps supposed to be of Mexican extraction. We're not. It's kind of ambiguous the way it is in spaghetti westerns. He's the spaghetti western faction of the film.
Yes. There are two evil colonels. He's the spaghetti western version, and Andy Griffith is the
Americana version.
Yeah.
And he's fine. Fernando Rey's fine. Like I wish that he had been used better and more, like he had been given more character. I feel like Andy Griffith was used pretty well. I just wish they had pushed the humor, the latent homosexuality more. But the Fernando Rey doesn't really get anything. He's just kind of there, and he's greedy, I guess.
Right.
Sela Ward is the colonel's daughter, which is
she's rough.
What? You didn't like her acting?
No, she.
What are you talking about? She was fine.
Oof.
What are you to wear? What scene?
Woof stiff. All scene. First of all,
what are you talking? She's like, totally fine.
I'm not sure how old she's.
She's 29 in the movie. Okay. That's how old she was when she made it.
But yeah, she's 29 in real life.
She's supposed to be like underage. Supposed to be like
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm pointing to.
Yeah, which is hilarious because she looks 29.
I don't think that they are, again, this could just all be subjective. That just feels like an accident. Like, I think that they thought, oh yeah, she can play a 16. And like,
no, look at her. She doesn't look anything like a teenager.
Listen, I like Sela Ward. I really enjoyed the scene of her wrestling with one-armed man in Fugitive. She'd be very stiff.
I thought she was fine.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Sela Ward is mostly from television, things like Sisters, Once and Again. She's in CSI New York, and then most recently you might have seen her in something like FBI, but she's done a ton of television.
Yeah.
And I kind of like Fernando Rey. She has even less to do than Marilu Henner. I didn't see the stiffness you're talking about. I just thought that she was very charming and didn't have anything to do.
Maybe to be fair to Sela, it's entirely possible that she was trying to relay another one of those tropes, and those characters, the colonel's daughter character.
Well, she is a little ridiculous. Yeah, I think she's overplaying it at times a little bit.
Barry Blackie?
Yeah, he's on the couch there, dead.
No! Oh!
You and Blackie dated?
Dated? Oh, Daddy, we did everything together. Everything.
Oh, my God.
I knew the real Blackie. Oh, Daddy, he could feel. He could touch.
Oh, my God. Take care of her, man. No, not that. Take her upstairs is what I meant. Gee whiz.
But there are times where that feels like it doesn't work very well. I'm thinking about like the scene where there's this kind of comedy of errors moment where
at the campsite,
where she ends up at the campsite, and that's another one of these jokes that they just really draw out. And at a certain point, like it's kind of like the Baba Booey thing where it's like you do it long enough, it becomes funny again. But so basically first of all, they make a big to-do out of all of these characters being in love with their horses that are always named, what was it, Wildberry or Wildfire? Yeah, Wildfire. And there's this joke early on where she's like, oh, well, Wildfire and I have this crazy bond and she'll only let me ride her. And then immediately the next scene, you see her be dragged across the frame and off frame. And then, I figured the joke would stop there and maybe we'd catch up with her somewhere later. But no, we have several more being dragged across the West. But then eventually she catches back up with Rex, or she crosses Rex at his camp. And there's this thing where, there's this potential attraction or spark between them. And, she's all dirtied up, and there's this joke where he goes to wipe her face, and there's just like the tiniest smudge of dirt, despite the fact that she's been dragged across the mud.
You didn't like that?
No, I like that
That's
joke.
hilarious.
I like that. I like that kind of stuff I love. When it goes to those Mel Brooks levels, I like that stuff.
That felt very Zaz, too.
But I'm thinking of that scene in terms of her stiffness where she is meant to be the kind of wide-eyed, innocent damsel in distress. And he keeps making her kind of shuffle out of frame because different people will come on the scene. In this case, like Marilu Henner has been looking for Rex because she wants to, give him the business.
Mm-hmm.
And just that whole sequence is just Sela Ward going, oh my gosh, I'm going to wait over here. Okay, I guess I will. And that just felt really stiff in that moment to me. But there are other moments where she's just supposed to be innocent rancher's daughter, innocent colonel's daughter, and it's fine.
There is a great missed opportunity during that scene, the as you said, comedy of errors, where the two ladies are in their undergarments.
Yes.
And people keep showing up to the campsite, and like Tom Berenger is just flustered. Like Zaz would have made a hilarious sequence out of that.
Yes.
Something really raunchy would have happened that would have been hilarious.
Right.
And nothing really happens there. It's representative of the whole film in a lot of ways. Like there are just jokes that are good ideas that aren't taken to the peak of what they could achieve,
Right. And that joke, as I was saying, is like, that's an example of a joke that stopped working for me about the second iteration of it. But then it got me back when, like the third or fourth time they do it. So, one of these characters will wander into his camp and I'll say, oh my God, we got to take your clothes off for some various reason. Wait a minute. I hear something. You better go hide. And then another character will show up, and then they rinse, repeat. And like by the second time they do it, I went, okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. But then, G.W. Bailey shows up.
If it had culminated in something funny, I think you would have felt that the two times were worth it.
Right. But also, what I'm saying is because they kept at it, eventually I was like, okay, you got me. But
okay.
Yeah.
But do you agree that it could have been funnier that moment?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm also, there are some missed opportunities in terms of just gag jokes and visual jokes. I mean, at a certain point, G.W. Bailey shows up, and I forget why, but Rex had picked up Marilu Henner's jacket and is wearing it for some reason. Oh, probably because Sela Ward comes back into the scene, is like, what's that jacket? And he's like, oh, that's mine.
That's mine.
And he puts it on. And then,
I like that.
Yeah, but I feel like there's, as you're saying, that there might be some missed opportunity to go even further with that.
There were various missed opportunities.
Like, where are you wearing a garter or something like that?
Right.
Just like a little extra spice. But as you suggested, he might not be a spicy filmmaker.
I don't think he is. No, and this is a testament to that.
Okay.
We had Jim Carter as Blackie. Now, I didn't notice who this actor was. Have you ever seen Downton Abbey?
I have seen it, but I wouldn't be able to pick him out of the lineup.
Okay, so I didn't notice this when Jim Carter was on screen. Blackie is the guy that Rex shoots in the bar.
Yes.
With the deep voice.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually the guy who plays Mr. Carson, the butler in Downton Abbey.
Okay.
Which is a great character. He's amazing in that. But
I'm glad he's still working.
He's also coincidentally married to Imelda Staunton since 1983, for those who care.
Good job, Jim.
Yeah, he lasts about 5 seconds and then he's...
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Patrick Wayne. I think we should bring him up. He plays Bob Barber at the end, and he plays the other good guy.
Yes. It may be the most meta joke of the entire film.
You can't beat me, Bob. You work for the colonels, and that makes me the most good. I don't see how I can lose.
Yeah, but I don't drink whiskey with hair in it.
Me neither. I just buy it.
And I don't have the colonel's daughter, who's practically a minor, out to my campsite after dark.
Well, that was wrong, I admit, but...
In the company of a known prostitute and a notorious alcoholic.
Yeah, you see, but they...
True or false?
True, but...
And there were drugs present.
Well, you could say that, yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes, what are you, a lawyer?
Used to be, yeah.
Now, look, I know this all sounds bad, but it's...
You did all this stuff, and you still call yourself a good guy?
Yeah. Yeah, you're damn right I do.
You don't have to curse.
I'll curse if I want to. Damn, hell, damn, TT doo-doo.
Now, hold on there, little buckaroos. You can't be hearing language like that. Get on back to school. Obey your teachers and study really hard. Nice going.
Yeah, and they do some really fun stuff about, them trying to one up each other in terms of virtue, which I liked personally.
No, I liked that stuff, but that's because it felt like they were able to cram that meta sequence with a lot of different jokes sprinkled in between. And so at a certain point, the different colonels, the different evil colonels also get in on the meta-ness of the whole thing somehow, for some reason. Maybe it's because all of these characters keep on reinforcing that Tom Berenger can see the future, or I think the exact phrase they use is he knows what's going to happen.
Right.
And maybe that gets around to them somehow. And I do...
Did we explain how that works? I don't know if we did. So Tom Berenger explains why he knows to the town drunk, a.k.a. Peter.
Who shows up and wants to become his sidekick.
Yeah, so he explains to him as they're walking through the town why he knows all these things about Peter's town. He said, How do you know all this? Because every town is the same.
Yes,
he keeps going from town to town, and every time it has the drunk, the whore with the heart of gold, the this, the that. This is going to happen here. That's going to happen there.
Yes.
So that's how he understands everything that's happening at Oakwood Estates.
Yes, that's the sequence that we started off talking about, where I started to get on my soapbox about the meta aspects of the film. That is a very long sequence. Whether it works for you, I think is a matter of taste, but it definitely makes it clear that Tom Berenger is aware of the tropes. And one of the reasons he doesn't want a sidekick, I'm presuming, is because there's a confluence of characters of the G.W. Bailey sort that are shot in any given film. I actually can't think of that many examples where like an old prospector sidekick type is killed, but I'm sure they exist.
Not off the top of my head. When I saw G.W. Bailey, the town drunk, I immediately thought of Dean Martin and Rio Bravo. Because that's probably the best Western with a drunk in it that I can think of anyway.
Certainly. Well, there is one aspect I want to mention, going back to Andy Griffith. You were mentioning some things that you thought he was pretty good, but they didn't quite go far enough with him. There was an aspect of his character that just kind of reoccurred to me now that I actually remember really enjoying, which is that Rex O'Hurlahan doesn't really ever kill anybody. In fact, they make a big joke about how he's always aiming for people's hands.
Right.
That's certainly a staple of the Western genre.
Right. Yeah, actually, when I misspoke earlier, when Blackie dies, Rex doesn't kill him. His own henchmen kill him by accident because they're trying to shoot at Rex and they shoot their boss in the back.
But one thing I liked about the Andy Griffith character is he's got this band of nitwit, whatever you want to call them, ruffians or henchmen. But this thing keeps happening where his henchmen will actually call him out on his antiquated Western trope shit occasionally. Like, there's one scene where like they end up on a ridge and they're about to have a shootout that Rex O'Hurlahan knows was going to happen. And G.W. is like, how do you know it'll be here? And he's like, it'll be here. And then, of course, there it is. And then as he's riding off,
chase him.
They're like, chase him. He's like, well, we're standing up on a ridge.
We can't chase him.
We can't chase him. Like, we told you this. Like, I just love the idea that there's that Andy Griffith is just so stuck in the machinations of a 1940s Western, and that his ruffians can are actually trying to point out the logic of the situation that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, the geography doesn't make any sense. It's just a trope that's accepted in Westerns.
Yeah. And they do this again where the colonels are in a boxcar and O'Hurlahan catches up to them. And he's literally just standing on his horse, not too far away. And they give them scope rifles and they say, shoot him, fellas. And they do their best to shoot him, but it's not working. And one of the henchmen goes through this litany of very logical and science-based reasons
He's
why
like, the wind is blowing at such and such miles per hour.
Yeah. And that stuff is an anachronism that works for me.
Have you got 3 rifles with telescopic sights?
Yes.
you miss? How could you miss? Even with these sights, we got a target 100 yards away, maybe more. We've never fired these weapons before. There's a definite wind factor, and we've got a problem with the sun. Just shoot, okay?
Because they didn't have to really stop and explain it. But there are other anachronisms that the movie feels like it has to stop and explain. Like at one point, Marilu Henner goes, I think we're just going to hang out. And then she, instead of the characters just looking at each other like, what? She goes, do you know what that means? Hang out, you know, like trying to go very out of her way, be like, this is a thing we say now and not back then, you know, like, and just when they didn't have to explain it, it worked for me, like the stuff with the scope and the guys on the ridge and stuff. But when they had to make sure that the audience was keeping track with the anachronism,
all right,
it lost me.
Well, going back to Patrick Wayne as Bob Barber,
Yes.
I just want to say I didn't know who that was when I first saw him. I don't know if you did. I'm not really that familiar with Patrick Wayne. He's the son of John Wayne, and he has this star wattage. I was like, who's this guy? Like, he's pretty good. And he made a real impression on me, and come to find out it's John Wayne's son. So there you go.
Doesn't he end up going on to be in the Young Guns films?
Yes, he is in Young Guns.
Yes, or at least the first.
Or one of them, yeah.
I think he's replaced by William L. Peterson at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I think, he plays Pat Garrett or something like that. Anyway.
Okay. Other interesting thing about this is that it's shot in Spain, where many spaghetti westerns were shot, which is Almeria, Spain. And the town that they constructed is specifically from the 1960s and was used by Sergio Leone, the most famous spaghetti western director of all time, which would also explain why they have a Spanish cinematographer. The cinematographer is Jose Luis Alcaine, and he's Almodovar's cinematographer.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at the lighting, it's actually quite delicate and beautiful. It's shot beautifully. It's not really shot like a typical American Western from the 50s or something, which is funny because you would think maybe they would go for some of that. But I guess they were trying to make it look more contemporary with the idea of like, what would it look like today? So there's sort of a beautiful glow on the actors, particularly the leads probably. And, you know, obviously Sela Ward and Marilu Henner.
Yeah. I have no bones to pick with the way this was shot.
And what about the editing? Any bones?
Well, I don't know how long the decision to draw out certain jokes was. I don't know how much of that was in an editor's hands versus with Hugh. That feels like a thing that like a savvy editor would go like, let's just cut a beat or two out of this joke. But then again, you don't know what the situation is. The movie's already less than an hour and a half. They might have needed to pad that time out. They might not have had enough material. I don't know who to come down on.
Honestly, I think it's the humor of the director.
Right.
They were probably just trying to make him happy.
Right. So it's hard to say because I do think that this is fairly tonally inconsistent, which is not to say that it never works. And it sounds like I'm being overly negative on this thing. I
think a lot of people would have problems with the pacing of the jokes in this. I don't, but I can see a lot of people having.
But also the nature of some of the jokes. I mean, it's like, I don't think somebody mooning somebody is funny. And I don't think that like people in the 80s probably thought it was that funny either.
Are you kidding? There were lots of mooning jokes in the 80s.
Bare ass moonings, sure, but not in this because he like pulls his pants down and it's just like his long johns. I guess.
You wanted to see his buttocks.
Yeah, we'll go there. You know, I mean, again, I know he's not spicy.
And that's the thing. Maybe he didn't go far enough in a lot of ways.
I know he's a Kraft mac and cheese guy, and he doesn't like any jalapenos.
He likes the shells.
And there's all of this kind of, you know, hey, you're a prairie fairy and stuff like that. And there's also stuff that I just don't get. There's like a joke where G.W. Bailey's in a bar and this guy comes up to him and he says, you have a light? And he says something like, yeah, your butt in my face. Wait, I have a match. Or is it my butt?
Have you got a light? Yeah, I got a light. Your butt and my face. Oh, wait a minute. I got a match. Yeah, and it's not your butt, it's my butt. Yeah, my butt and... Oh, hi, stranger. Want to know what's going on?
And he's like, that's literally like the joke. And it's like, well, those words don't make sense together. Like, what are you talking? What?
because the joke, he messed up the joke. The joke is supposed to be, do you have a match? And then you say, your butt in my face.
Okay.
But instead he said, do you have a light? But he still used the same joke. And so then it doesn't quite match up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, it's just a timing thing.
And it's also an old joke. And I didn't, as somebody actually who was in I watched it with some friends and an older gentleman explained that joke to me. And I was like, okay, my butt, your face.
Sure.
They match.
Yeah, no, okay. I'm with you.
Do you like,
but then sometimes it does.
Let's go theoretical for a second here in terms of rhythm and pacing.
Yeah.
Do you like the pacing of The Matrix?
The pacing of The Matrix.
The movie The Matrix, 1999?
At times, I think it drags a little bit, but
the editing does?
Yeah, at times, but I think there's so many moments where the movie's trying to be like, doesn't this blow your mind? Where it's okay to have a little pregnant pause to let the audience go, what? You know?
Well, interesting you say that because the editor's the same guy.
Interesting.
Zach Steinberg.
Interesting.
Along with Colin Wilson, edited this film. He also edited In Time, 2011, and Ender's Game, 2013, among others.
Okay.
But, The Matrix is probably his most famous film.
I would say that's certainly more of an achievement. But it's again, even that stuff's inconsistent because we say he's not spicy, but then he has jokes where like Marilu Henner's like, I nearly had to rape you for a sherry. It's
not really that spicy, is it?
Somebody pointing out that they almost raped them in like a lighthearted cowboy comedy.
Well, it's a woman saying that she practically had to rape a man.
Well, I guess I'm just saying compared to people going like, you're a prairie fairy. It's like at times it feels very PG. And then at times it feels like they could potentially go there.
And that's the thing. The humor seems dialed to a point where a child would be able to watch it.
Yes.
Like it doesn't, again, the spiciness level is very, very low.
Right. But a kid's also not going to get the boner jokes like, oh, I didn't know you had 3 guns down there or whatever.
But I would probably be pretty comfortable showing this to a child.
Yeah.
Because those jokes would just go right over their head. And there aren't that many compared to today, So the music, any comments on the music from you? Because they were by a very, very famous actor.
I know where you're going with this, but no, I didn't. The music didn't stand out other than occasionally it feels like it's aping its sources accurately.
But you do realize that it was composed by Steve Dorff.
Yes, I do.
Is my comedy not spicy enough for you, Colin?
I feel hot. So, I mean, whatever that means.
There we go. The stunt coordinator had a great name, Jose Luis Chinchilla.
I like it.
Yeah, I would imagine he's a Spaniard since they shot this in Almeria. And he also worked on Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, Conan the Barbarian, and Watch Out, We're Mad.
Boom.
It's an old Terrence Hill, Bud Spencer comedy film. Anyway, any other aspects that you want to talk about of the film?
I do agree that this is like a film that has a funk to it that is pretty thick. And I do think it's really inconsistent, but I can't bring myself to be too mad at it. There were times early on where some jokes just landed so badly for me that I was gearing up for a really long watch and it flew by. So I think it's an watchable film and there must be qualities about it that I latched onto to feel that way.
Maybe part of those qualities is that it's 88 minutes long.
That, but I also have such a love for the genre that I'm fine to hear people go like, this is what this genre usually does. And here's what it usually looks like. And that's kind of what this movie's doing. And it's like, okay, yeah, it is what it does. And I like those things. So,
So you might find this interesting. I think as far as its strength, I find it really charming.
Yeah.
It's extremely light fun for the whole family. I find that's a strength, I think, in a way. For live action comedies, you don't see necessarily a lot of those currently. That's mostly animated films that you can get that from. Except for now, I guess, that they're live actioning all the animated hits from the past.
Right. And probably going to spice them up. And certainly, what's the name of the Seth MacFarlane Western? It's like A Million Ways.
Oh, 8
Million Ways to Die in the West.
Something like that.
I don't need it to be that. I just, when it goes spicy, I'd like for it to feel like it can do that. And I still think you can do that in a family-friendly way.
Yeah, I agree. At least, better than it did.
Yeah. But
weaknesses, I literally put it could be funnier. And I personally think it could lean less heavily on Western trope jokes.
Yeah, I agree.
Patrick Wayne said in 2017 in an interview, quote, "If your audience is between the ages of 18 and 26, they don't even know what the B-Westerns were. They've never really had a chance to experience it. They didn't get the parody nor the joke, but the older audiences pretty much got it. Unfortunately, they're not the people that go to the movies, so you had a real paradox there." I think he nailed a lot of probably why it didn't do well in 1985.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
That's Rustlers Rhapsody. What are 3 films you've seen recently, old or new, that you'd suggest the audience check out?
We get to do this to each other.
We do.
That's
over and over.
Boy, well, I'm on the spot, but one comes to mind immediately because I just watched it. I certainly don't know if it's something I can recommend broadly, but I think it's a movie that thoughtful horror fans will get something out of and have a lot to talk about, which is the 2025 horror film Bring Her Back. And this is by the same filmmakers that brought you
Rakadaka.
Talk to Me is
the Rakadaka is they had that YouTube channel, Rakadaka.
Oh, okay, I know nothing. I know nothing about that.
Oh, okay.
Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou, and I believe those are a couple of Aussies. This is not the same beast as Talk to Me. This is a bleak horror film. And I wouldn't call it cynical. I almost want to say nihilistic, but it has a sense of spirituality to it. And a lot of people get tired of horror films being a metaphor for trauma and grief. And I'm kind of in that camp myself. But this is a film that's kind of doing some of those things and doing it in a really different way. And I hope people will check it out. But be warned, I mean, it's intense.
Okay.
And it won't be for everyone. Lighter fare. I want to go to a different movie from this year. It's hard to describe what it is. I guess it's kind of a meditative comedy about baseball. It's called EFIS. And it's from a director named Carson Lund.
Okay.
And it's really about a municipal baseball team filled with guys in their middle age who are playing the last game of their season because it seems like they're going to tear their field down. And it's not really any more complicated than that. That's the setup. That's the premise. And then you're going to watch these characters play baseball throughout the day. And that's it.
Cool.
And it's getting into this weird, deeper truth about being middle-aged and also about baseball. And sorry, it's a 2024 film, but it landed on a few critical radars, and I think it should be seen by more people. So EFIS, that's from 2024.
How do you spell that?
EEPHUS, and it's literally a kind of a pitch. It's a pitch that has so much movement and is so slow that it's almost kind of like a trick pitch.
It sounds like a changeup.
It's like a changeup and a big curveball that goes like 30 miles per hour.
Wow.
And sometimes you'll see like a baseball game where the score will be so screwed up that they'll like bring in a position player to pitch the inning because they don't want to waste their bullpen or whatever it is.
Okay.
And they will, sometimes you'll see a pitcher like that throw an EFIS pitch because they don't want to hurt themselves.
Okay.
But anyway, it's actually a metaphor for like the state of the characters in the film, the title. So it's a unique little piece of filmmaking. The last one I'll bring up, I watched because of a sister podcast of ours that's dear to both of us, which is the movie Microscope. But they recently went back and revisited The American, which is a film that's near and dear to me.
Okay.
I like what would you call it? A crime thriller. Some people would even call it a spy thriller, but there's really very little spy craft. It's really just a professional criminal genre that is also very subdued.
It's a character piece, that one, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And it's about, you get more jollies from the methodical nature of somebody being a professional than you do from seeing a bunch of cars explode and big set pieces. And it's a meditative, thoughtful little thriller. And I think it's quite good.
It is. I agree.
And those have just been on those are kind of more recent films, but they've been on my radar recently. What, could you drop 3 films of your own, Bill?
I could maybe even drop one extra. So,
wow, you're going to do it overtime? Go for it.
Here we go. So my sister recommended a film that she said was an influence on Hereditary, and it's by Joachim Trier, a Norwegian director who I have enjoyed in the past quite a lot. And you may know him from The Worst Person in the World, I think is his more famous film.
Which I really enjoyed. It's enjoy is an interesting word for it, but I liked it a lot.
It's great. I'd recommend Reprise too if you get a chance, if you enjoyed that one.
Okay.
But he made a film called Thelma, which came out 2017, and it's a horror film, and it's quite interesting and thoughtful and slow to some degree, not terribly slow, not as slow as some horror films, but it's a somewhat slow burn. And it follows this young woman who's going to school. You're learning about her and how she adapts to being away from home, her relationships with fellow students. She starts to become attracted to this other woman. And then you start to realize that she's not like the other girls. And I don't want to say much more than that. It's
kind of sounds a little Suspiria-esque.
In a way.
Norwegian?
To a degree. Norwegian.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Nice.
The next film I'll talk about is City of Hope by a scion of American indie filmmaking, John Sayles. I love him, and this is something that he wrote and directed. Came out in 1991. Bob Richardson shot it. It has Vincent Spano, Tony LoBianco. It's just another one of his character pieces, his ensemble dramas about this town and the different people in the town dealing with their circumstances. And as usual, thoughtful, feeling, and quite well told in the John Sayles vein. But then I'm also going to talk about Busting, which is a early Peter Hyams film from 1974 with Elliot Gould and Robert Blake. So apparently, and I didn't know this, I think until after we watched it. I watched it with a movie night group. And this is what Starsky and Hutch is based on.
Okay.
But it's quite kinetically shot by Hyams. He's the director. He, in subsequent films, becomes his own cinematographer, but he was not on this one. But I wouldn't doubt it if he had a lot of influence on the camera. It's quite good. If you like cops films, particularly 70s cop films, watch this. It has some really interesting moments in it, including a bar fight with trans people. And it's just, it's a fun movie about corruption. And then the film that I really want to scream out to the world right now that just knocked me out is a film about two misfits. One of them's kind of a punk rock guy who can't get along with anybody, and he's always angry. They're probably in their 20s. And then this wallflower girl who, similar age, she loves punk music, but everybody treads on her. She's very kind of unassuming. She doesn't like living at home with her parents, who don't take her seriously either. And by coincidence, they meet, and it is a ride. So I cannot recommend enough. Dinner in America by Adam Riemeyer, 2020. Watch this film. It'll juice you up. It'll give you a punch to the face. Those are mine.
I could use some more punches to the face. Lord knows.
It's a love punch.
All
it's
right.
a love punch to the face.
Oh, well, thanks for the recommendations, sir. I'll check them out.
Absolutely. Thank you for yours. As always, we're on the socials. I guess we'll give out some personal socials real quick, or at least I will. I'll leave it to Colin if he wants to.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so Colin, how can people find you online?
I'm Colin J. Dixon everywhere. That's
Okay.
a Blue Sky, IG, Twitter, which I don't ever use anymore for obvious reasons.
Instagram, I'm Insta Boodell, and everywhere else or most other places I'm at Boodell. So pretty easy to find.
Sweet.
This episode is sound engineered, edited, and mixed by Colin Dixon. This was produced by William Boodell, Colin Dixon.
Don't sell yourself short. Bill's actually got a hand in engineering this one.
Oh, I forgot. Never mind. I forgot I'm engineering, guys.
Yeah.
Hold on. This episode is sound engineered by William Boodell, edited and mixed by Colin Dixon. It was produced by William Boodell and Colin Dixon. Original music composed by Michael Riola. Recorded at Harkness Studios in beautiful Redondo Beach, California. Very warm Redondo Beach, California today. If you'd like to contact us with comments, suggestions, or high praise, email us at cosmicmotionshow@gmail.com or find us at linktree/Cosmic Motion Show. Emails, audio, or other media you send us may be featured on the program. Thanks to my amazing co-host, Colin.
And thanks to my prospector friend, William.
We look forward to exploring the cinematic cosmos with you in the future. Until then, keep learning, growing, and creating.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.